DAX, and I'll leave a link to that video in the comment section. What I want to do here is show you how to create a date in Power Query within the M code. So I'm going to jump in to the Power Query. So what I want to do, I want to find a data source on the internet. If you search for create table in M, you'll see lots and lots of different versions. So there's no point rewriting your own. Find something that suits and copy and paste. So for this example, I'm going to use this one from Ron Buckton in GitHub. So first of all, let's just take a copy. Over here, into Power Query, I want a new blank query. I'm going to hit Advanced Editor and hit Paste. Okay, so that's going to build, this is all the M code here. And it's really good for you to, if you're learning M code, to have a look at how this is structured. It will give you some indication on how to use M code. So I'm just going to hit Done here. Before I do that, what we've got is two let statements. What this is a function within Power Query. And effectively what we're doing here is in this function we're declaring a start date, an end date, and a culture. So if I just click Done, I'll show you what happens now. I just want to rename this as date function, so we know what it is. So basically the function back here, an important piece I forgot to say, is anything with the equals and greater than symbol declares this as a function. Now there's another let and in within the M code, and that is what uses the function. So if I find start date here, you can start to see start date within this code here. So just here, start date, end date, and it's used to help build all the other columns. Right? So because it's a function, what Power Query has done is created a parameter section for me. So let me just show you how you can trigger this manually. So I'm just going to do the 4th of Jan to the 30th of Jan, and I'm going to select I'm in the UK, so the British function, invoke. And as you can see, that's created a table between those two parameters, and it's added an awful lot of columns that I can use in my modeling around days, week ending, weeks, days of the year, etc. So lots of information there. Right? Having a date table in date model is so important, so vital. What I'm going to show you next is how to invoke this function automatically, so you don't have to type these in. Now, you don't always need to do this. You could just put a year in advance and a year back. But what I'm going to do is show you how to dynamically use data within your data model. So I'm going to look at sample data here. I have a created date that goes back 2019 or to 2021. So I want to make sure my date table covers all of that information. So let me just delete this here. What I'm going to do now is effectively create those parameters using the Power Query editor. So I'm going to create a new source, a blank query, and what I want this to do, it equals the sample data and then the created date. Did it have a space in it? Created date, lowercase c. So that's given me all of the dates. Now, what I only want is the minimum date. I want the start date. So I'm going to call this the start date. Just double check this function. What does it call them? Start date, end date, and culture. So I want this to match the function. Now to get the minimum date in M code, there's a simple function called list min, and this will take the minimum from the list that it's created here. There you go. And because I've used the word list, it's created it as a list, and you can see it doesn't look like a table anymore. What I do want to do, I just want to convert this back to a table. And again, I'm going to call this start date. Now I want to do something very similar and add the end date into this. So if you go into your transform, you you've got all these great, add column, you've got all these options here, and this invoke custom function is what we'll come to eventually. But I just want a custom column, and I want to show this as end date. So again, very similar. I'm going to do list max because I want the maximum date, and it's from the table sample data, created date. I'll hit OK. There you go. That's the max date that I have in my table. And for the culture, so here, as we typed in ENGB earlier on, I'm going to hard code this. So create a custom column. We want this called culture GB. There we go. So now I have this information. I just need to make sure that these are formatted correctly. So this is a date column. This is a date column. And the culture is just a text field. Okay. So what I've done, I've built this table here, and I'm going to call this table actually date table. So back over here, invoke custom function, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select that. So this is going to trigger that date function, and I want this to be called date table. It's going to create a new column here, which we'll need to expand. It's going to ask me for the function, so I'm going to select the function, and then it will ask me to confirm what the start, end, and culture are. So start date is the start date column. It's looking at these columns here. End date, I want this to be a column name. I want this to be end date. Culture again, column name, culture, and hit OK. So what's going to happen every time I refresh this sample data, if I bring in another 2 or 3 months, Power Query will generate the dates in the date table. So this will be effectively a dynamic function based on your source data. So once I have this, I'm going to expand this data here, and this will add all of these columns into this date table. I don't want the original column name as prefix. What that means is that when it creates the date column, it will be date table as in the column name, .date, .year, etc. So I don't need that. Click OK. And there you go. That's how to dynamically use a function and build a date table in Power Query. The best thing to do, delete those, close and apply. It's difficult to get your head around. Following this and trying to understand this, it will help you grasp how functions work. It will also help you use M-code and understand how M-code works, and give you a little bit of an option to sort of really expand your knowledge. Use the internet, it's out there. There's some great stuff already. You don't have to rewrite this yourself. And that's it. So listen, thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, please hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.